We'll ask about it. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming to our Maiden Town Council regular meeting for Tuesday, February the 13th. I'd also like to thank the United Arts Council. They're here with us tonight, and they're going to be doing a presentation for us here later on. But as far as now, we're going to turn it over to Councilmember Cameron Ramsor for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us bow our heads. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for letting us come together as a town, God. Lord, just thank you for giving us the ability and resources, God. Lord, just help us to make sound decisions for our town and for the people, God. Thank you for blessing us and keeping us and everyone that is connected to this town, God. Just bless us. And in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you have before you tonight, tonight's agenda. If anybody's got anything they'd like to add or anything you want to take off, if not, we'll need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. Approval of the regular meeting minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. Now we need a approval for our special meeting minutes.
Make a motion, we approve our special meeting minutes as presented.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. All right, presentation for United Arts Council. Ingrid Keller, Executive Director.
Okay, good evening. First and foremost, I am a proud Blue Devil graduate, class of '02, and I want to give you a quick story about how the town of Maiden has truly impacted my life. When I was at Maiden Elementary in Mrs. Lutz's third grade class, we did a lesson, of course, on civics, and that year, the Christmas lights went up before Halloween, and I was very concerned about this as a child. So I wrote a letter to the town manager at the time and requested that she consider just waiting till after Thanksgiving to put the Christmas lights up. Of course, I had no clue about logistics and the things that you need with the box trucks and all of that, but much to my delight, the next year, the town of Maiden complied with my request. So thank you all for teaching me at a very young age about how local government can work very well. Thank you for serving me, one of your youngest citizens, and now as head of a local arts agency, I get to serve you all. So first, I want to thank you for your investment in arts and culture. It's been a pleasure to work with Manager Herms and also with Miss Huey, is it now? And also Councilman Ramsor on providing funding and support for events like your Jive After 5 and also the Juneteenth events and celebrations as well. So we are pleased that we can do that and to serve as your cultural arm. And tonight we're here to tell you about how arts and culture are serving you and the citizens of Maiden and how and why the arts mean business and are good for business. So I'm going to give you a handout that will have a summary of the presentation that's going to be up here, so you don't need to worry about writing any of those numbers down. They're all going to be in here. And I'm going to turn the program over to Alan Jackson, who is the immediate past president of the Arts Council, among many things, also head of Jackson Creative, and he helped to compile and analyze the results that you're going to hear about this study tonight. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. So yes, pleasure to be here with you tonight and to tell you a little bit of some great news and information we have to share. As Ingrid alluded to, we took part in a study back over the year 2022. So we compiled data throughout the year, and then this past year, that data was organized and reported back to us to be able to present to you back today. So this was something called the Economic and Social Impact of Nonprofits, Arts and Cultural Industry. It's kind of the title of the presentation. It's based on the Arts and Economic Prosperity 6 survey that was conducted. That's where we actually went out and, as part of this organization, we actually went out and got the survey data from both arts and cultural organizations across Catawba County, as well as people who are coming to Catawba County, either from within the county or outside of the county, to attend any of our events. We were surveying people throughout the year at a variety of different events and programs to try to get a good compilation of data that we could then feed to this Arts and Economic Prosperity organization. They then turned around and kind of gave us all of our benchmark data to see how our numbers and how our economic impact compares to other communities. And that's what I'm going to share with you on this presentation. So just so you understand, there were 373 different regions and communities across the United States that took part in this same study. So they all conducted the study the same way we did here in Catawba County. This is happening all across the nation. We had 31 arts and cultural organizations within Catawba County take part in this study. So they provided organizational data, finances, information that was then compiled by this organization. Then we, as the Arts Council here in Catawba County, actually went out and got 794 completed surveys from audience attendees, people who were visiting our different events throughout the county. So this is all throughout 2022, a variety of different arts and cultural organizations where we were able to get audience feedback and input on the survey. All of that data was then sent to the organization that compiled everything and gave us back our results, which we have then are here to share with you how we did. Now, throughout this, some numbers I'm going to share with you, there are some comparisons to other similar sized communities. And that's the ones I really want to pay attention to, because those are comparisons against other 100 to 250,000 population communities across the United States. So even though there were 373 communities that took part in this study across the nation, there were actually, I believe it was 63 of them that were in that same cohort group that we're showing comparisons against. And those we feel like are the most meaningful, because that really tells us how we compare against other similar sized populations across the United States. So the big number on the next slide here is really this total economic impact that the arts and cultural organizations in Catawba County are having right now. And that economic impact is $53.5 million of impact that we can measure and show from this study that the arts and cultural organizations are basically funneling back into the economy because of the work that they're doing throughout our county. Now, that number's pretty high on its own, but actually when we look at it compared to other communities in the United States in that same population size, 100 to 250,000 population, we're actually 80% higher than that average of those other communities as well. We actually increased by 9% from the economic impact that we measured back in 2016 when we did this study previously. So over that 6-year period, not only did our economic impact on the community and on the Catawba County grow, but also when we compare ourselves to other communities across the United States of similar size, we're far outpacing them in what we're seeing on average of the economic impact that we have. And people ask a lot, what does that mean? What is that measuring when it says economic impact, that 53.5 million? It's really calculated from 3 different factors. One is the number of jobs that the arts and cultural organizations are supporting and employing in our area. 2 is the residential household income that is funneling back into the economy by paying people through salaries, wages, entrepreneur income, and so forth. And then it factors in also the calculation on revenue that comes back to our local, state, and federal government through our arts and cultural organizations. So it takes those factors together, and that's how it generates that $53.5 million economic impact based on the data we gave them from our organizations. Now, that 53.5 million impact is actually carved up into 2 groups. One is the actual arts and cultural organizations, their spending, what they're spending themselves that obviously is circulating and funneling back into our economy. That's just at 12 million of that 53.5 million. The other 41.5 million are coming from our audiences. That means whether they're visiting from within Catawba County to an arts and cultural activity or an event, or they're coming in from outside of the area to Catawba County, the impact is 41.5 million from just those audiences alone. Now, I showed you comparisons on the yellow there beneath each one. For organization spending, we're actually 6% less than other similar sized regions that we're being compared against across the United States. So what that's telling us is that our arts and cultural community here in Catawba County, those organizations are technically spending less money on average to actually work and operate as organizations. However, the audience number is where we are 247% higher than the average of other audience spending in other communities our size. So what you're seeing right away, the other 41.5 million is coming from our audiences of these events and activities and festivals and other things that are happening throughout the community. So what that's showing you is that our organizations are spending less money than other communities on average, but the impact it's having with the audiences that they're bringing to our communities and the audiences, the spending that those audiences are doing is far and away outpacing what we see in other communities across the United States our same size. The economic impact, as we break it down to just a few quick numbers, we are showing that the arts and cultural organizations are generating and supporting over 1,000 jobs right here in Catawba County. That's 74% higher than other similar regions that we're compared against. We're seeing that the personal income going back into residents is just under $23 million, and that is 24 or almost 25% higher than other similar study regions in the United States. And then we see that the government revenue is right at 6.1 million. That's going back into government revenue, whether that be local, state, or federal level. That is 20% higher than other communities where we're being compared right now. Overall, and just a quote from the report that we got back from the organization that was analyzing our data, saying that the AEP, that Arts and Economic Prosperity Survey number 6, this process is demonstrating that when we support the arts, we're investing in Catawba County's economic and community well-being. There's actually a calculator that they gave us, which I think is really interesting to look at to see exactly what the impact is of a certain amount of dollars funneled through these arts and cultural organizations. So for example, in this one, if we see that for every $100,000 in direct spending by a nonprofit arts and cultural organization in Catawba County, we see the impact it has back on our economy. Every $100,000 is generating about 3.5 jobs back into our economy. It's got household resident income of about $72,000. And then you see the revenue for the local, state, and federal revenue, government revenue. It's about $15,000 it's funneling back in. So we can measure that for every $100,000 spent by our organizations. That's the ripple effect it's having back into our economy from that. Then if we look at the same thing with our audiences coming to Catawba County to visit these events and activities, we see that for every $100,000 that the audiences are spending, it also has a ripple effect back in our economy with employment and household income and government and state and federal revenue as well. So again, keeping in mind, that's money they're spending when they come to our area. It's not calculating the actual ticket price of any event they went to. This is talking about impact on dollars that they spend just by coming to the event. Could be gas, could be hotel rooms that they're coming from out of the area. It could be food and drink that they're spending while they're at the event. Gifts they buy, anything that they shop for while they're at that event. That's the kind of spending we're talking about, and that's where we are receiving so much more economic impact from audience spending than most other communities that we're being compared against. In fact, the attendees themselves are spending about $56.20 on average per person per event. So think about that. Every event that our arts and nonprofit and cultural organizations are putting on, an attendee comes to that event, they're spending on average $56.20 to be at that event. Whether it's through food and drink, retail shopping, clothing, transportation, lodging, childcare, any of those expenses, that is all money that they're spending because of that event. And that is then coming back into our economy and helping fuel what we do here. And then we break it out, we look at the audiences that we're bringing in. About 60% of our audiences that we surveyed were local, meaning we can say with a really high assumption based on the numbers of surveys we got back, about 60% of the attendance of our nonprofit arts and cultural organizations activities are from right here in Catawba County. The other 40% are traveling from outside of the area. They're coming here exclusively for that event or driven by that event and then spending more money while they're here in our community. The local event spending is about $50.23 per person per event, while the non-local is $65. That makes sense People coming in from out of the area are spending more money for lodging or gas or anything else. But overall, compared to a national average of spending, nationally, the average is about $36 per person per event. We're at $56 on average per person per event. So right away, not only are our events bringing in more people and people that are spending more money, on average per person, they're spending more money at the events because of these organizations and the work that they're putting into these activities. Now, also, just one thing to be aware of is in the survey, it wasn't just financial data that was being asked. We also had some questions in the survey that were asked of audiences about the social impact of the arts and cultural community organizations going on. Things like, is this venue or facility an important pillar for me within my community? Would I feel a great sense of loss if this activity or venue were no longer available? And so forth. You see that these sense of pride and the sense of importance that they're putting on arts and cultural organizations and the activities that they're attending are all very high. Those are high percentages on the positive scale of agreement with those statements. And those compare right in line with what we're seeing nationally too from this study. So the people in Catawba County have a high sense of pride about the arts and cultural community activities going on and the venues and places in which they're happening. We asked a lot of the same questions of the actual organization leaders themselves, people who are running these arts and cultural organizations, just to make sure that they also feeling are very, very similar positive opinions about the impact their organizations are having in our community. And you can see there again, some very, very high scores we're seeing on the social impact of these organizations. And overall, and this is on a national level, this is not Catawba County specific, but we do see from the study that we were given access to that 86% of people nationwide are saying that arts and culture is important to their community's quality of life and livability. 79% believe it's important to their community's businesses, economy, and local jobs as well. And that seems to be very much the case in the belief system here in Catawba County as well. We have some other demographics in the report. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to help you understand that we're also using this survey in the report to help understand better the audiences coming to our events, and both those that are local attendees and ones that are non-local. So you see that we have broken out groups by age group. We also have some breakout by educational attainment to see how our spread of representation across our surveys was. And even the household income we see as well. We had some nice representation from all different educational attainment levels, age groups, and household income. Race and ethnicity, we are also tracking with that to see kind of what the makeup of our audience was as we look at. So all that information is in the full report. But in general, the biggest thing I want to share with you from this as a takeaway is understanding that we have means to measure what that economic impact is of the arts and cultural organizations operating and working within our community. And we can see that it's a significantly higher impact on the economy here in Catawba County, these organizations do, than most of the places we're being compared against similar size across the United States. And when we break it out to see what's really driving that, if the organization spending is actually less. These organizations are spending less money on average than we see in other communities across the United States. But even with that, the outsized impact it's having on the audiences that are coming to these events, to these activities, and the money that they're spending, and spending that are obviously impacting our community right here in Catawba County, is incredible. It's a 247% higher audience spending impact than what we see in other communities. So the arts and cultural organizations themselves do not spend as much money to operate as other community surveys do, but what that basically is telling us that they're bringing larger audiences to events and have a greater impact on local state government revenue while spending less money to actually do so. That just goes to show the dollars spent on our arts and cultural organizations, the outsized impact it has on the audiences that they bring in and the economy as a whole. So that's what we're really excited to share with you. That's my presentation. If there are any questions I can help answer right now, I'll be happy to do that. There's a lot more detail in the full report, but I wanted to at least share with you the highlights here with you and just show how these big numbers that we were really excited to be sharing ourselves. So are there any questions I can help answer about this survey, the report, or the findings?
I'm curious as how you got to those numbers of breaking down the spending.
Right.
I mean-
Yeah. So basically, when we surveyed almost a little over 800 people, and about 793 of them were using that study, the survey did include asking them to tell us, what did they spend money on while they were traveling, or when they came to this event. And they were pretty specific. We asked them to give us some numbers, approximately how much did you spend on food? How much did you spend on gas or lodging? And they gave us all those numbers. So when we have about 800 people giving us that kind of data, that really tells us we got the averages together, and that's how it broke out, and it
So
truly
it's
was.
broken down actually in the survey.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, so $56.20 per average person per event, which is great. I mean, it's amazing. I was really surprised at how high that number was compared to the national average, but just goes to show people are willing to spend that money. Yeah, that's
Okay,
actually a copy of the
alright,
survey
thank
that
you.
people filled out there, so yeah.
What's more amazing is that they remembered what they spent.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, we're catching them at the event, which is good. So
Oh,
they're,
yeah.
it's during the day of the
Yes.
event, so
Yeah.
hopefully it's pretty fresh on their minds there, yeah.
What's some examples of some of your events that y'all sponsor or participate in?
Sure. I mean, it's a nice cross-section of a lot of them. I mean, there were community theater productions going on, both in Newton and Hickory. Ingrid, I know you know some of the organizations.
Maurice Mill Folk Art Festival, the Juneteenth
Juneteenth
event,
event.
we started, the Green Room Community Theater, Hickory Community Theater. We tried to get, a good cross-section of the community of both rural events and then more metro areas. So, yeah, we tried to, and also, we looked mostly at geography, but also at size of organizations. So, we surveyed the Hmong Festival, which had 20,000 people come. They spent the most on their clothing, which was really interesting because they bought clothing
I believe that.
specifically for that
Wow.
event. So that was a really, interesting one I thought in particular to find and learn about because they didn't have any data about that either, so.
Yeah, their dress is out of this world. And it's usually they've handmade or had someone to handmade it.
Yes.
So it is very
It's part of the tradition, yeah.
extravagant.
Yes.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for this time, yes.
I'll leave
Thank
several
you.
copies of this at the back for anybody who's here tonight that would like to look at the data closer. And also just know our next big venture is a cultural plan for the entire county. We welcome any of you to serve on the leadership team for that. And I'll forward details to Manager Herms and Mayor Bumgarner about that. And we would love to have you all participate and be a part of that. We're going to be asking all of your citizens to give their input, and also we're trying to do an inventory of artists who live here. We want to, and when I say artists, I don't just mean those with a paintbrush or a violin. I'm talking about the woodworkers and the potters and the folks who are the keepers of the traditions here in Talbot County as well. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, citizens' requests and comments. If anybody has anything to say, just come up to the podium, if you would, give us your name and address.
Hey, Samantha Saunders from the Maiden Business Association. Just here to remind you that March the 23rd is our Maiden Mystery Egg. It's where businesses participate and give all of the guests a gift, and the guests can register for a prize. The grand prize is going to be $300 gift card to Food Line this year. Would anybody like a flyer that tells about the event?
I'll take
Samantha, I don't know if y'all have ever thought about it, but sending those announcements to local churches and ask them to include that in their communications, in their bulletins.
I
think,
can talk to you later about
yeah, okay.
that. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and everybody. I'm Jim Kershaw. I'm with the Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. My second time here in town. I was here last week, worked with Anna. She's helping get information out to your citizens on social media and your website and the like. And I met with Samantha's group, the Small Business Association, to let people know that we are here in town. We have a center over at the Emergency Operations Center in Newton, where folks who had any setbacks from the recent tornado can apply for our small business loans, the long-term low-interest loans. We help homeowners and renters. We help them with physical damage as well as economic injury loans. And the information is up on the website. We encourage folks to come in there through next Tuesday, so we're there 6 days a week. We have customer service reps that can answer any questions. And like I mentioned, and a lot of folks don't know that we do help homeowners and renters. We can help a homeowner that had physical damage up to $500,000, a renter or the owner itself for $100,000 for contents of the home. So if they took water damage or, a tree damage. And like I said, we also help the businesses with economic injury. The deadlines to apply for the physical damage is April 1st, even though we're closing the center next week. April 1st for the physical damage, and then November 1st for the economic injury. And like I said, I've got information I can share with anybody, and appreciate the time and can answer any questions. Okay, appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't think I'm gonna need the microphone. And my name is Annie Ramsor, and I am here to, first of all, to recognize Black History Month. And I am thankful for Maiden to recognize that. But I didn't see any names on there for recognition. And there's a lot of Black people in Maiden that has put an impact on Maiden. And first of all, I'm going to give you some names, which I am very proud of. R.D. Ramsor. He was the first Black police officer in Maiden. And I don't know if everybody knows that. Okay. Calvin Ramsor was the first Black to have graduated from Maiden High School. And that was during integration. Okay.
Classmate.
Also, I think Bob Smythe, I'm sorry, not Bob Smythe, but Bob Cunningham, I think, is the oldest Black in Maiden. And he can give you all the history of Maiden.
How old is he? Annie, how old is he?
I don't know how old, but he's pretty old.
Like 100 old, 99 old, 80 old?
He's,
Might be 93. Yeah.
And still kicking, still getting around good?
yes, and he walks. If anybody sees him, he is walking that trail all the way in town and back. Okay. Mary Henry. She has helped to get some things going, especially with that splash pad, and people are enjoying it. Okay? And Cameron Ramsor, which is he wasn't the first to run, but he was the first to win, and to win in all 3 categories. And I just want Maiden to not just put something up to say, well, that you're recognizing Black history. Use the people so that when others come along, they will also say, well, hey, I can go back and I can be a part of that history. And I'm not gonna tell you about myself. Y'all don't want me to tell you about myself. But anyway, I just wanna thank you for the time, and the time to please take the time out next year to do a little bit more work on Black History Month, because it's the shortest month. And don't be as vague about it, okay? And I appreciate you all, I do. But we as a people have to come together and start doing recognition. And that way, other people will feel a part of Maiden. Maiden is growing. And you want something to go back on. You don't want to wait until they die and they don't know how much you appreciate them. And thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
Mayor, council, good evening. I've heard some questions coming about the old tanker still sitting down there. I know it was approved in, I believe it was December meeting to sell it. It went out for bid. It has been sold. A company out of West Texas, or Northwest Texas, Panhandle, Texas, bought it. So they're supposed to be here this week to pick it up. Their truck driver, evidently, they only have one, and he was stuck in West Virginia a couple weeks ago in snow. And by the time he got back to Texas, and then they had a bout with the flu with their driver and a couple guys in their shop. So I talked to them yesterday, so they're supposed to be here sometime this week if everything goes well to pick it up. But it has been sold, and the total on it that was in the check was $21,040. So that was much greater than we was anticipating for a truck that old. But I just wanted to let y'all know about that. Second thing is, Miss Gina Moore, she's here with us tonight. She is a representative and an architect from ADW. And she's gonna sort of give you an update of thus far on the new fire station and maybe be able to answer any more questions that you may have up to this point. Thank you.
Luke, I have a question before she goes.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that purchased by a department or an individual?
No, it's a company called West Texas Acquisitions.
Okay.
So
And so what would they do with it?
they buy them, refurb them, and then send
Sell
them
'em.
out to other businesses.
Okay.
Hey everyone, good evening. I know there's been a lot of interest in the fire station construction. So thus far, they have accomplished replacing the stormwater pipe that goes across the property from 8th and ties back into Union. That was a requirement that had to be done at the very beginning of construction by the state to control any kind of erosion, dirt, washing out onto the adjacent properties. That's why it's been taking kind of long to see a lot of real construction movement on the site. So the next month, they really hope to finish their mass grading operations. So there's big piles of dirt. Some of the dirt is contaminated with organics and so forth and has to be taken off site. They'll have to bring some dirt onto site. So they're hoping to kind of equalize all that over the next month to kind of get it set to where the building would be and the different pads. And then they're going to focus on that lower parking lot towards Union Street because they want to use that as a staging area and put the construction office there. So they're going to be focusing on that work. And at the same time, they'll start digging the footings for the building, which will be great to see some work going on for the building. And stubbing in utilities in the building area and then working on the site storm drainage kind of around the building to pick up like rain and so forth from the roof drains to tie in. So you probably still won't see any walls coming up in this next month, but there will be a lot of work going on to get it ready to start building those walls. So, do you have any questions or anything that I can help address right now, or?
Are we still pretty much on plan? I know we had a lot of rain, we had things that, you
Right.
can't build into a project plan.
Right.
But overall, are we still pretty much on course?
I think that the contractor right now is tracking about a month behind schedule. And
Okay.
I anticipate in the next month or two, they're probably gonna wanna come before you to ask for some kind of extension on the construction. And the main delay initially was, COVID has really affected manufacturing and being able to get certain things in certain timeframes. So for this project, getting the reinforced concrete pipe that was needed at the very first step to go across site, that was a time delay. So honestly, the timeframes for getting that's a lot better than it was a year ago. You know, back then it would have probably, you might have had to wait several months to even get that pipe on site. So I do anticipate they're gonna probably wait and see how it goes over the course of the next month, month and a half, to see some real construction improvement. And then I imagine they are gonna ask for some kind of extension based on that. So the only other real extension, there have been some rain delays. We do build some rain time into the schedule, so they're supposed to account for some of that. There might have been 1 or 2 extra in the month of January. The only other delay was uncovering a drainage pipe that came from one of the houses to the pipe on Union Street. So it was a lot higher than anticipated, but it was something that we couldn't know because it was on somebody else's property until they actually got out there and we had the easements in place to be digging and see how high it was. So that probably impacted their time frame a little bit also.
So looking back at my notes, I think they had right at about 100 days buffer built in, if I recall correctly.
I honestly couldn't speak to it.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at it, so
Okay.
to know. But I know in our documentation that they had to price, we list so many days for every month that they kind of have to kind of allow for 7 rain days in
Sure.
January or 3 days in June or something like that. So I'd have to tally all that up.
Yeah, I don't think the project plan was that specific.
No.
I just remember looking at, you know, the overall plan, I was calculating right at about 100 days of buffer. And it's alarming to me that if they're already
I know.
scared and you had 100 days buffer built in. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, I mean, I just think we need a lot more detail around the extension
Yes.
with a 100-day buffer built in
Yes.
to a project plan.
Okay. So, and we've told them that they will have to bring backup to
Yeah.
justify all that
Yeah.
as well.
Okay.
So, because they do face liquidated damages at the end of the project if they can't deliver it.
Sure.
So, but by the flip side, you still want them to do a quality project. So we don't want
I don't want them to rush through it.
Right. So you kind of have to balance both of those out at some point.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's just the 100 days, I know you have, what you have built in, and this early before a wall goes up, it's like, we might need extensions, like, well, hold up.
Yeah.
You know.
I'd have to look into an actual 100-day buffer, because I mean, I don't remember there being like that much of a buffer. We just we tell them that they have to allow for so many days of like weather impact each month. So I'd have to look into that
And it would be
further.
interesting to see a project plan with the contingencies and the buffers built in.
Okay.
Because I just did it based off what I could see
Okay.
and calculated that. So if I'm wrong, it would be really interesting to see
Okay.
where those are at. Sorry, I'm a project manager.
That's okay. That's okay. Maybe
That's
we can,
why I asked so many
and
questions
maybe
about
I
that.
can leave you a card and maybe we can have a conversation.
Sure.
So you can point out to me where
Yeah, I
you
would just-
see that, just
yeah.
so I make sure I'm looking at the same thing. that
I don't
you
want to
are.
have unrealistic expectations of them and be like, you have 100 days and it was like 40. You know
Right.
what I mean? So
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes, because for the most part, we just told them you have 14 months to build this project.
Right.
And we're only going to allow you to count this many days as
Sure.
rain. And you have to account for some. We all know it's going to rain, so you have to kind of build some of that stuff into your schedule.
Exactly.
Yes, so,
Thank you for the explanation.
sure, thank you. Anybody else, any other questions on what to expect? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put in a side note just for that. If you have children, grandchildren, boys especially, that enjoys big equipment and a lot of dirt moving, go park yourself over there at Union Street, because I go by there a couple times a day, and there is a lot of equipment up high on dirt digging down, and little boys love that stuff. Every time I went by there, I thought, I wish my son was still young, because we would park right here and what, because he loved big equipment and dirt moving. So if you have those boys, bring them over there and let them see it, because it's not something you get to see all the time. And little boys that loves big equipment loves to watch that. Exactly. Yeah. So it's quite
Thank you.
entertaining.
Anyone else like to speak?
I do have a comment. A question from a citizen. We had talked about, and this has probably been 2 years ago, and I didn't look back at the minutes to see. We talked about putting that Maiden sign out on 321 area, and we decided, if I remember correctly, to wait until we rebranded to do that. So a question came to me, were we gonna do that? And then it was also a suggestion that they would like to see a Maiden sign somewhere out in, around Leavenworth Church, somewhere in that vicinity as you come into city limits. So I told them that I would bring that to council for discussion and sort of get an update where we are on that signage.
Yeah, so, we wanted to wait until we got rebranded.
Right.
And then we're in the process of getting updated budget numbers for the upcoming budget, and see if council wants to continue to do that. Because of the numbers we got 3 years ago.
Higher. Was it
will-
3 years? I thought it was 2,
Will
I
no
couldn't
longer
remember.
be valid.
Yeah,
And I think we had a little bit of trouble getting power to them. Is that right, Brian? Brian?
Yeah, we had even looked at a solar option for northbound 321.
Yeah, there's some logistic issues with getting power to the sign.
okay,
So,
all right,
but we haven't forgot about it. We're still working on it.
okay.
Anyone else? If not, we're gonna go ahead and move over to the consent agenda item, which consists of the finance officer's report for the month of January.
Make a motion, we approve the financial office as presented.
Have a motion
Second,
and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous. Now we're going into a public hearing for Appendix B and traffic ordinance.
Good evening, council. Before you this evening are updates to our Appendix B in Chapter 20. Some time ago, staff was directed to review this section of our code. Appendix B in Chapter 20 govern our traffic standards, and specifically in regards to where parking is and isn't allowed, stop signs, speed limits, yield signs, and one-way streets. I'll go over the changes that staff has made and recommended to be adopted. Under our no parking areas, the no parking section updates. This section, we really went into looking to try to update it, because over time, many of the sections have been added over the decades, but prior sections were not maybe updated, so there were a lot of obsolete or redundant or conflicting standards within this code that we needed to update. Specifically references to buildings that were no longer there, or specific parking standards that were specifically for those industries on those streets. Next, we updated the state roads section. So in practice, folks aren't really parking on our state roads, but we did not incorporate that into our code of ordinances. So we have mirrored that general statute now into our code of ordinances. Previously under Union Street in Appendix B, it was broken out into sections from Maine to Second or Bob Smyer, then from 4th to 6th, and I believe it was 10th to Providence Mill Road. What came out of staff's review of the street was to restrict parking across all of Union Street and to also incorporate East Boyd Street in prohibited areas as well. The new subdivision of the Villages of Maiden has been added into this section as well. It is prohibited under their restrictions on this subdivision, and we were going to incorporate that as well into this code. We have a specific exception for town-maintained roads to allow for service vehicles such as landscapers and contractors, provided that they can be seen by oncoming traffic at the time. Additionally, we've worked with the Council of Governments to have a GIS layer available for town staff so that we will be able to always access and see what these roads are that are or not have parking restrictions placed on them. Next is the stop signs. All the stop signs that are within the town of Maiden have to have a legal backing for them to be placed there. So we went through and reviewed all 160 reference stop signs to make sure that there was one there, and then looked for stop signs that might not have a reference section. The recommended additions were for areas that were marked but not referenced, so that might be subdivisions that have been built in, say, the past 20 years or so, and then road extensions that have happened within the town, for instance, Zeb Haynes extension. Additionally, we removed some obsolete stop signs from the code, sections that were initially labeled as yield signs in the code of ordinances, but in reality have been stop signs. The speed limit section of the code, we just wanted to mainly make sure what was being placed in reality matched with the code, and that the reference sections and other places of our code of ordinance matched what our Appendix B had stated. And then the last section was the one-way streets. We corrected the road reference. It was incorrectly labeled in the code of ordinances. And staff recommended that council revisit this once the elementary school has been completed to determine if a new traffic pattern might be needed along that area. And I'll take any questions that you might have at this point.
I'll start by saying thank you to you and the staff, because I know this was a beast of a project and it's been going on for a while, so good job, and thank you guys for the effort you put into it.
Yeah, and I'd like to recognize the fire chief, police chief, Wagner, and Wisnett for helping out on this project.
I'd like to add something to all the way up here. Those code ordinances, as you may or may not know, some of them are really outdated, and it's a lot of work to go through those. Blake done a tremendous job on it. He was in constant communication with us and the fire department. So, sometimes people don't get recognized for the hard work they do, and I think it's imperative that we recognize Blake and the hard work he's done on this. So, we appreciate it.
100%.
Good job, Blake.
But while you were up, I don't know if this is directed at you or Blake or who, but a lot of these will have to have signage, correct? Because there's a lot of, and then as far as like, and I'm probably thinking ahead, so let's just say this is approved, right? What's the kind of time limit that this becomes? We approve it tonight, but you've got to have signage, you've got to tell the public, and then there's probably a gray area on warnings versus enforcements.
I would just recommend that this is my opinion, that because really there's truly two big changes on this if you think about it. Boyd Street and Union Street, all the way. And we really don't have we have a problem. We've had a problem in the past with a few different places, but in conversation with those people, they rectify itself. I don't necessarily know that going out here and plastering all the way up both sides with no parking signs is the answer. I think that once we figure out if you're going to adopt it or not, then we can take it as a case-by-case basis and look at it and see where we think we need signage.
Kind of a case study basis.
And just see what we think works, the difference and the distance apart from the signs and stuff of that nature. So to answer your question, I think we'll get there, but it's not a fix for tomorrow. tomorrow.
But it's still more of the grace period on
Oh, yeah.
informing versus
Oh, yeah.
ticketing immediately
Yeah, no, we
kind of
educate-
thing, yeah.
Educate the public and go from there. yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a manager, you always think of all these questions you wanna ask the staff before they bring something before council. And I failed to ask Blake this beforehand, but once they pass this, we don't have to bring signs back to council. We can do it as needed across the board, like if the chiefs recommends we need no parking stand every X number of feet.
Yeah,
That
that
does
will
not-
not need to come before council, it'll just be.
I thought that was the case, but I wanted to make sure, so that kind of answers your
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
The staff will kind of determine where it needs to go,
Well,
when and
and-
how.
And Chief kind of answered that too. I mean, I don't want to ride up down any streets and every block see no parking, no parking. I mean, it kind of litters the look of the street, so.
Yes.
But I just didn't know what protocol was.
Yep. Thank you, Blake. Thank all
Blake.
y'all.
Thank you,
I know, y'all worked hard on it, and I really appreciate it.
Anyone else? Not, the public hearing is now closed. New business, audit contract.
I'll take this one, so Jess don't have to walk up here for this. This is just our annual contract with Louder Milk and Church to conduct our audit for next year. This will be their third year. Typically, you want to stay with an audit firm 3 to 5 years and then may look at going elsewhere, just to make sure you stay in compliance. We've had no complaints with them as far as the staff goes.
So I'll make the motion to approve the audit contract with Loudermilk Church and Company.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous. Okay, direct staff to research different government models.
Yes, so, at our, at our council priority, meeting we had, one of the things that came out of it was we've had the same, governance model for several years now. I think we're one of 3 cities that still follow this model. And the mayor wanted to put on this agenda to have staff research it and bring back options. Council may decide that we're doing perfectly fine with the model we got. They might want to look at other types. This was direct staff to do that.
I make a motion, we direct staff to come back with different recommendations and models on government.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. Ordinances and resolutions. Have before you ordinance 17-2024, ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget in the general fund fire department.
The budget amendment before you is to bring in the proceeds from the sale of the tanker truck. Currently, those are sitting in our miscellaneous income. We feel that those would best be used in full-time salaries, so this would just need to be approved to bring those funds in.
Is there not a fund for like future trucks?
There is. The reason we're putting in fund-time salaries, just to be blunt and honest with you, is we may have to increase our starting salaries to get qualified applicants. And so, and at the end of the day, it's gonna come out of the same pie,
Okay.
no matter where we put it.
Yeah, I was just curious.
And it would be the full-time salaries for the fire department,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
other departments.
So I'll move we approve ordinance 17-2024.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous. Ordinance 18-2024 is the Buffalo Shoals Water Line Loop Project Capital Project Budget Ordinance.
Before you is a capital project budget ordinance. The town of Maiden did receive ARPA grant funds from Catawba County for this project. We just needed to put this into a project
budget because it will carry over multiple fiscal years. We were awarded $1.5 million from Catawba County's ARPA funds to expend on this project. And the use of this project will be to extend the water line on Buffalo Shoals, which will eliminate the need for the water tower on East Maiden Road and also improve areas of low pressure.
It also will provide fire protection to areas that don't have it currently.
I move we approve ordinance 18-2024, the Buffalo Shoals Waterline Loop Project, capital project.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. Ordinance 19-2024, Dog Park Project Capital Project Budget Ordinance.
This is to follow up from the previous meeting where Keaton brought before you the project for the dog park. This would be the funds to make that happen, as well as adding extra money to put a bathroom at each Union Street Park and Rosenwald Park.
So my question, on this, on the contingency, if you dip into the contingency, is that something we will know about? I know we don't have to have a motion to spend it.
Yeah, I mean, if we run into something that's gonna cost that much money, I'd of course let y'all know, but I don't anticipate spending it, but we are using a site that's been an industrial water plant for hundreds of years.
My hope is you come back and you tell me it was even less than this, and it's more than $50,000 we can
Well,
get back.
I mean, that's our hope too. But we built it in there just because we don't know what we're gonna run into.
Understood.
I still would like to have seen a line item where we broke out the other two restrooms at the two parks and not put this in the dog park capital expenditure, because when somebody looks at that capital expenditure for dog park, they're not gonna realize there's close to $100,000 for two other restrooms.
Okay, and I was the one that did that, and I did it because of bidding reasons, really and truly, because, and the lawyer, Wesley can confirm or tell me I was wrong, but under my understanding, if we did it in 3 different locations, we'd have to bid all 3 locations, correct? And have 3 different budget ordinances, correct?
Yes.
So, we got a good bid, it was lower than anticipated, and I wanted to stick with that bid.
And
I think in the long run, it's gonna save the town money.
And we can notate each expense in the system, so should it ever come up, we can pull a report that says $49,000 paid for a bathroom at Rosenwald Park, $49,000 paid for one at Union
Well, one of the
Street.
reasons I was saying that is I've heard one comment said that we didn't need a dog park. So when that person follows up and sees $300,000 for a
Just
dog
one?
park.
I'm getting a lot. Here's the thing, I don't think, if it's 200,000 or 300,000, I think you're gonna get the same thing for a dog park, whether you've got a bathroom built in or not. So, I mean, you're splitting hairs at this point.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 19-2024 for the dog park project.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous. Ordinance 20-2024, an ordinance to update Appendix B in Chapter 20 of the Maiden Code of Ordinances.
I move we approve ordinance 20-2024, ordinance to update Appendix B in Chapter 20 of the Maiden Code of Ordinances.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous. Resolution 12-2024, a resolution of achievement for the Maiden High School cheerleading squad.
So, Anna, can you take this?
Yes, the cheerleading squad couldn't be here tonight to be recognized, but the mayor still wanted to recognize them, and they're thankful to be recognized. They just had a basketball game in West Lincoln, maybe, somewhere.
Lincoln.
Lincoln, okay, so they are thankful to be recognized, they just couldn't be here tonight.
And so and the reason I asked Anna to do it, she wrote up the resolution. She is a former cheerleader herself. and knows the terminology better than some of the other people we have on staff. But this is the back-to-back years that they've won the North Carolina High School Association, Athletic Association, to a state championship. So we will do like we did in the past. We will have a resolution printed, all signed, framed, and presented to them. I don't know if we'll get it to a basketball game this year because there's only one home game left, and I don't know if we can get all that done in time. But they're very thankful, and yeah, that's it.
Well, they do have a sports banquet. Could possibly do it then.
Yeah, we may be able to do that. Something like that, we really lean on the coaches to decide when it's the best.
Coaches and athletic director.
Mhm.
It'd be nice to get it done next Monday night, the ball game, but that's a tight time frame.
Yeah, it seemed like last year they wanted, the competition was earlier in the season. I think this year it was a little bit later, so we didn't have really time to get it done.
It was, because we did it before Christmas last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it was earlier December, if I remember right.
You're right.
I move we approve Resolution 12-2024, resolution of achievement for the Maiden High School cheerleading squad.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That motion is carried unanimous. And we need a motion to go into closed session.
I so move we go into closed session.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say no. Y'all can hang around. We'll be back here in just a little bit. Well, we did it.
Oh, we went out of closed session, we're back in.
We're
You just
back
got
in.
announced that we're back in open
Okay,
session.
we're now back in the session. And you have before you a pending ordinance 21-2024, land acquisition budget amendment.
Make a motion we approve ordinance 21-24 for land acquisition.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion is carried unanimous.
That was Holly. Oh,
Yeah.
you second.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't have my,
Okay, before we adjourn, I think we had somebody wanting to speak.
Hello, I'm Summer. I own Providence Cotton Mill here in Maiden. I just wanted clarification. I know you all had a meeting in December regarding the dog park. We were slammed and busy at that time, so I just wanted a little bit more clarification as far as the logistics of having the dog park. And as far as, you know, the restrooms, will they be locked? Will there be someone to go and lock the facilities? I guess that's my first question, then I can just kind of feed them away, whichever works best for you guys.
man, I really wish I hadn't let Keaton go home now.
I'm sorry.
So the restrooms, as I understand it, we're gonna have a time gate that opens and shuts, and so the restrooms will only be open during daylight hours when the park is open.
Right, so they will have some sort of like a lock, I guess, that someone will go, okay. Just because we have had, some of the off-duty officers have, you know, raised concerns too to me, because we've had a few people that just randomly walking through there. We found a couple drugs along the road lines, things like that. So that's my concern, of course. And then also a future concern would be how the property is going to be maintained, just to ensure that we don't have diseases filled in all this soil and stuff. And I wanted to make sure that was accounted for.
Yeah, so we will maintain it just like we would any other park. We're also in the process of, and I don't know where the status of the grant is. We're applying for a grant with some agricultural state agency, I don't know the proper name, to actually plant trees in the lower area. So in time, the seedlings will be different sizes. So
Right.
in time, when you look across the road from your place, all you'll see is the forest.
Right.
And it will be all the way from the road, all the way up the hill to to the fence line. So it won't be like a 10-foot buffer. You're gonna have a good several 100-foot buffer between the two.
Perfect. And then will it be mandated that they're on leashes at all times, or?
Once they leave the round of the, what do you call the little area?
It's a holding area
Yeah,
or
once they
something,
leave the-
staging area.
Yeah, so you walk in, you'll have a gate, you have to have a leash on it until you go through the gate, you let it off the leash, and you go through another gate to get into the park. once they leave that first gate, they gotta leave, they gotta have it on leashes.
Right, okay. And so, and then there's staff designated to clean up feces and things like that, I
Yeah,
guess?
I mean, we're gonna have to mow it and everything.
Right, okay.
So,
All right, perfect. And then as far as the hours, how are we looking for the hours? Do we know that yet?
I do not. I do know that we was looking at several different options. And before it's all said and done, the rules will have to come back and be
Right.
voted on it, or looked at and all that good stuff.
Right.
But I wanna say it was during daylight hours. It will not be after dark, and it will not be, you know, before too early, because at the end of the day, I do have staff that has to work,
That's right.
so it won't be too late, it won't be too early.
Right, okay. And it'll be well lit, I'm guessing as
Yes.
well. I know right now it's dark, but
Yeah,
it's
it
kind of
actually
in our
did
favor
better
right now
lit.
because it's a little scary. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
they will be lit, and if I'm not mistaken, are we, and I hate asking Tammy questions like this, are we installing cameras at the parking lot area? Yes. To help monitor in case something was. That is true, because if we lit it, they could come there after dark, so it will be closed before it gets dark.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I did misspeak on that.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to know, just because generally, you know, if you have a facility, people are visiting during the daylight, they get to know it, they're more comfortable at night. So if it's not lit, it just gives them a new home, whereas right now, they don't know what hole they're gonna step in or how they might fall or
Yeah, so
twist an
once it
ankle.
gets dark, the gate will close, nobody will be allowed to come back in.
Perfect, okay. What kind of gate are we talking? I mean, is this gonna be kind of like a? Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be kinda similar to the one you see at the Public Works building.
Right, okay. I mean, and it'll look, you know, anything will look better than the water plant did. I'm not here to cause any trouble, but I have found, you know, there's been some fishing poles in the tree line at the creeks. And, you know, there were times thought we heard a few people talking along the creeks, you know, and so we just kind of hop in our cars. Right now, I leave 4 people just to close up for that reason and stuff. So I just want to maintain the safety for my employees and then, of course, the town of Maiden as well. So those were just really my questions.
And you have my cell phone number. We wanna be a good neighbor at the end of the day, so anything.
Y'all are fantastic.
Yeah, so anything that pops up, just let me know and we will address it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the only issues I've ever had with the town of Maiden has been my water bill, but I'm not enjoying city limits, so.
That's for another time.
No, but I just, like I said, just the main thing has been the safety, the Airbnbs and all that have popped up within Maiden and stuff. I try to send everyone from there, cause about 87% of my clientele is actually from across the country. I've got people from Australia and Scotland, and by the time people from Maiden or Catawba County reach out, we're booked, unfortunately, but I could not be more thankful. 2 photographers, actually, one from Virginia, one from Texas, moved to Maiden. One's within the city limits, one's right outside the city limits. They shoot a ton for me at the mill. So I think Maiden's doing a lot of great things. It's a huge growing community. I just wanted to be safe because I don't want people kissing saying I do, and then we have a dog fight going on in the background.
Yeah, and we was very sensitive. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to plant the trees to give some type of sound barrier.
Right.
Also, we've actually talked to some different experts on what type of trees would be best. And also, and another thing is, we also put it on the highest point so that the sound wouldn't travel down the valley,
Yeah.
you know, it would go up the other way. And we got some natural barriers there. At the end of the day, we're gonna try to be the best neighbors we can.
Absolutely. And I guess my last question is just the access point for the dog park, because that curve is so bad
Yes.
right there. I wasn't sure people coming in and going, how that's gonna work.
Be off Providence, isn't it?
Yes, it's gonna be off
It's
the
on
water
water
plant.
plant,
It's
right.
on
Be
water
off
plant.
Providence.
Where you went in
Water plant
to the old water
Yeah,
plant,
so
right?
we're utilizing the same entrance way that the town used for all those years.
Perfect.
We wanted to get as far away from you as we possibly could, and that's one of the other reasons why we chose that location.
Right, okay. I said that was my last question, sorry. One more last question. As far as the grading and stuff like that, how is that going to affect, is there going to be any difference than like the creek and the runoff of the water and stuff like that?
The most of your major grading is already completed.
Okay, perfect. I think that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Okay, now we need a motion for adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. We're adjourned.